So this story takes place a long, long time ago. You're wondering how long ago? Well, it was so long ago that there weren't computers. There wasn't the internet. There wasn't even television or cell phones. That was a long time ago. And in the evenings, if you finished your meal, pretty much the only thing left to do would be to talk, which is perfectly fine, or to go out and look at nature, which again is perfectly fine. But you see, Anansi, who is a spider, and his wife also a spider, they kind of started running out of conversation. And although the nature around them, since they lived in Africa, was wonderful, they got kind of tired of that too. So one evening, Anansi said, it would be nice to have some stories. And also said, it would, but we don't have any. You see, for those of you who don't know this, the sky god had all of the stories. He had them in a great big box that he kept all to himself because he was very selfish. Well, Anansi said, I think I should go up and ask him if we could have a story or two, to which Aso laughed. You're going to go up and talk to the sky god? You see, the sky god was very terrifying, and she knew her husband quite well. Anansi was kind of lazy and also a bit selfish, and she never dreamt that he would go up to see the sky god. Well, Anansi got very upset, and he said, well, just for that, I am going to go up to see him. And so he let out his webbing, and he went up to the sky. Now, he was very determined at first, and he kind of marched down the path to the sky god's palace, as much as you can march when you have 8 legs. And he marched past the guards and into the palace, but then as he saw the sky god ahead, he got a little bit nervous. And by the time he got to the sky god and he bowed his head, he was very nervous. And the sky god said, why are you here? What are you bothering me with? And Anansi said, well, you see, I thought maybe, well, actually my wife and I thought maybe you'd let us have a story or two. What? I don't share my stories. Leave. And so Anansi turned around and he started to leave. But before he got out the door, the sky god started thinking, he could have a little fun with Anansi. It would be some entertainment for him. And so he said, stop, come back. And Anansi hurried back and he bowed again. And the sky god said, I won't give you 1 or 2 of my stories. I will give you the whole box of stories, but you must complete 4 tasks for me. He told Anansi what the tasks were. Anansi left, went back home, and his wife also, who was waiting for him, said, well, did you get a story or 2? And he said, I can have them all. What? You can have them all? He said, oh, never mind. We're never going to get them. And she said, why not? He said, I have 4 tasks and they're impossible. I can't do them. And also said, now, wait a minute. When you have a big something to accomplish, break it down into parts. Tell me just what one of the tasks is. It's unbelievable. How can I, as a small spider, do this? I must capture Python and take him up to Sky God. And also said, just a minute, let me think about this. And she came up with a plan. And so this is what she had Anansi do. He went out into the jungle where there was a little bit of a clearing, and he pulled down a big, long branch from a tree. And he just paced from one end of the branch to the other, mumbling to himself until he heard the slithering of Python. And then he mumbled a little bit louder. This is what he said. I think Python's longer, but my wife thinks he's shorter. And Python, hearing his name, Python came up. And he said, Anansi, did I hear you say my name? And Anansi said, oh, Python, you've come just at the right time. You see, my wife and I are having a little discussion, well, really an argument, about whether or not you are as long as this branch. I think you're longer, she thinks you're not. Well, I'm not really doing anything right now, so I'll stretch myself out and you can measure me. And that's what Python did. He stretched himself out. Well, as soon as his head was facing away from Anansi, Anansi got out his webbing and went and tied the python to the branch. And then it was just a matter of taking Python up to the sky god. Now, needless to say, the sky god was a little bit angry when he saw that Anansi had been able to do that, but he wasn't worried because Anansi still had 3 more tasks. Anansi went home, also said, well, did the plan work? Did my plan work? And Anansi said, my plan worked perfectly. And she said, your plan? She said, okay, what's the next task? He said, oh, I'll never be able to do it. After all, I'm just a little spider. And she said, what is the task? He said, I have got to take Leopard up to the sky god. So she thought about it for a moment and also came up with a plan. But since leopards hunt at night, she had Anansi go to bed because he was going to have to get up very early in the morning. Well, the next morning came, and after Aso woke Anansi up for the 3rd time, he finally got out of bed. He went into the woods to an area where he knew that leopard hunted, and he dug a great big deep hole in the ground. He took branches from a tree that still had the leaves on and covered up that hole so that it would be like camouflage. And then he went and took a nap behind a tree because he had to wait until that evening for Leopard to come. Well, pretty soon he heard Leopard coming. Make the leopard sound with me if you'd like. He heard meow, 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 and he knew Leopard had fallen down into that hole. So he came out from behind the trees and he just kind of sauntered by the hole and he hummed a little when he heard, Anansi, is that you? He looked down and he said, Leopard, what are you doing down there? He said, somebody dug this big hole. And Anansi said, well, Leopard, if you can't see any better than that at night, I don't think you should be out at night. Get me out of here. What can I do? Anansi said, I'm just a little spider. The leopard said, think of something. Well, of course, Anansi already had a plan Aso had given him. And so he took a tree branch and he put it down into the hole like a ramp. But when the leopard tried to go up that one tree branch, it shook too much. It ended up taking 3 branches before that ramp was secure enough. And as the leopard came up the branch, he watched his feet really carefully and was crouched down low. And that's what Anansi waited for. As soon as he saw that, he whipped out his webbing and tied that leopard to those branches and carried them up to the sky god. Well, the sky god was a bit more angry this time, but he reminded Anansi he still had 2 more tasks. Well, Anansi went home. Sorry, dropped something. And also said, well, did it work? He said, yes, it worked, but I'll never be able to do the next thing. And she said, what is it? He said, I have to take live wasps up to the sky god. If 1 or 2 sting me, it will just make me sick. But if more than that sting me, I'll be dead. Aso thought about it. And she went into the kitchen and she came out with a gourd. Now, gourds are hollow inside, and it looks something like this, but she had put a hole on one end. Well, she gave it to Anansi, told him her plan. He went into the jungle and he waited until he heard some wasps. Bzz, bzz, bzz. He climbed up into a tree. He hid the gourd behind his back, and he took some of his legs and dipped them into some water because wasps don't like to get wet. And he would fling the water anytime a wasp got close. You can do that with me if you'd like. Here we go. Fling, 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 fling. Well, the wasps got mad. They started buzzing around. Bzz, bzz, we're getting wet. Bzz, 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 we need a dry place. As soon as he heard that, he whipped out that gourd and he said, here's a place that's dry. And one by one, the wasps flew in. Ready? Bzz, 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 bzz. When he had them all, he simply plugged up the hole with a bit of mud. And he took the gourd up to the sky god. Now the sky god looked at the gourd and he said, why did you bring me a gourd? And Anansi grinned and said, shake it. The sky god could hear the wasps. He knew now that Anansi had completed 3 of the 4 tasks. He was really getting worried, but he would never be able to do the 4th task. So he bid Anansi farewell, and Anansi went back down, shared with Aso that things had gone well with his plan. And he said, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Aso, because the last thing I have to do, no one can do. No one can possibly do except for the sky god. And she said, now, Anansi, what is it? And he said, Aso, I have to capture a fairy. Now, let me stop the story for just a minute. I don't know about where you come from, but in Africa, fairies are invisible. How can you capture something you can't see? Well, Aso had to think about this one a lot longer. But she went up into the attic and she dug something out, and then she went into the kitchen. And when she came out, she handed Anansi an old, beaten-up, ugly doll. And it was covered from its head down to the feet in honey, sticky, gooey honey. She also gave Anansi a small bowl of mashed up sweet potatoes. Fairies love sweet potatoes, at least the ones that live in Africa. Now Anansi took that doll and he went to a clearing in the jungle where there was a little stream and lots of flowers, just the place a fairy would like to visit. He put that doll up against a tree and he wrapped a twine around her neck so that he could make the doll shake her head even though he was behind the tree. Well, he put the sweet potatoes in her lap and all he had to do was wait. He waited not too long because then he heard a little teeny voice say, excuse me, I see you have sweet potatoes. May I have a taste? It's my favorite treat. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, my goodness, I've eaten all the sweet potatoes. Do you forgive me? But the doll said nothing. I said, do you forgive me? Nothing. Where I come from, if somebody asks for your forgiveness, you tell them you forgive them. Oh, you make me so angry. Hey, why is my hand stuck on your face? Why is my other hand stuck on your face? Oh, I've got to get my hands loose. Oh, no, now my foot's stuck on you. Oh, now my other foot is stuck on you. That's all Anansi needed to hear. He knew that the fairy was stuck. So he got out his webbing material, wrapped it around, and took the doll with the fairy up to the sky god. Now, in case you're not quite sure what happened there, you see, Aso knew that fairies can have quite a temper. So when the doll was taken to the sky god, of course, the sky god could see the fairy. He's the sky god. He can see everything. And he was very angry. He accepted the doll with the fairy, but he said, I am not giving you my stories. You may leave. Well, Anansi was very upset and he started to leave. And then suddenly he heard, come back, Anansi, come back. For you see, the sky god had realized that Anansi had accomplished all of his tasks. So the sky god maybe had been not clever enough for Anansi. So he gave the whole box of stories to Anansi. And Anansi took those home and shared them with Aso. And also, Anansi shared with their neighbors, who shared with their neighbors and their children, and their children after that. And folks, that is why we thank a little spider for all the stories we have in the world today.